Hey everyone, it's JC, the Gospel Centered Health Coach. We are doing a mini course today on finding a bigger why. And I'm telling you right from the start, if there's only one video you watch on my channel, it's this one. When it comes to health, dieting, eating, losing weight, all of that, this is a big one. I think this changes everything. And I'll tell you why. Think about how much success you've had with getting healthy, losing weight, sticking to better eating, right? Or those the failure rate is just huge in terms of crashing and burning and starting over and regaining what we lost and not finding a place to settle in and stay. And a lot of times I think we just think in our heads, well, if I could find a better diet, if I could just find the next fad and then the next fad and then the next fad, I would settle in. I would do it. Or if I could stop all the stress in my life, right? That's why I keep overeating. Yes, that's part of it. But I truly believe this happened for me. It's happened for many people I coach. When you find a bigger why, a why that's big enough to counteract all the benefits of eating the junk, a why that's bigger and heavier and more solid, it will change everything. Let me start with a little story just from our family life to illustrate what I'm talking about. I have 7 kids. This is years ago when they're all gone now, but when they were all younger, teenage maybe, preteens, we planted a pretty big garden back then. I'm married to a country boy, and it was time to get out and get it planted. But we lived in Idaho at the time, and it's cold in the spring. It's just miserable. And so we're in coats planting the garden. Why we live there, I don't know. But of course, this was not my kids' favorite chore. So we bundled them up. We're like, come on, no, let's go, like you do as a parent, get them all out there. We got that horrible job done, and they were all in the house shedding coats, like, finally, we're done. And I sat inside the house thinking, the house is wrecked too, guys. Like, we still need to clean bathrooms. We need rooms picked up. There's more to do. And I knew in my head that the minute I brought that up with them, it was going to be like World War III. Like, oh, Mom, no. And it was going to be like pulling teeth, and I was going to have to be like in their bedrooms going, come on, let's go, get up, do. I mean, maybe you have kids that were like, yes, I'd love to clean my room. But that was not the state at our house. So it was funny. This Saturday, my husband came in. He goes, you know what? Let's tell the kids we'll treat them to a movie if we'll get the house clean, which was a rarity with 7 kids. And we did not do that very much. But we said, okay, guys, it was a Chronicles of Narnia movie that had just come out. We were totally into that. We'd been reading it as a family. And we told them, I'm not even kidding, like night and day, 180. Everybody was like rushing through the house. Mom, what else can I do? Then vacuuming. What can I clean the bathroom? I mean, it was like attitude change. I secretly was thinking, can we do this every Saturday? Because this is really cool. As a mom, like, this is my secret weapon. My point for this is, when your motive, when something deep inside changes and you have a bigger why, suddenly the things you've dreaded and hated and failed at, it just changes. You don't have to be motivated. I didn't have to be down in their room going, I'm setting a timer, let's go. You go, what? They did it. They just went and did it with a great attitude. It was just easy. It was just different. That is what I'm talking about when it comes to our health. When we find a why that motivates us like that, it doesn't mean it's going to be completely easy all the time. Like, I acknowledge that. But it will be big enough and strong enough to carry us to a place where we stay there and experience the benefits of truly coming to a place of vibrant health, where we feel better, the weight's going away, everything we've wanted and failed at again and again is finally happening. So on our list today, we're going to talk about deepening layers of why, bigger ones and bigger ones. We're going to talk about some that may already be your why. This comes from a video. The idea came from a video by Simon Sinek, a TED Talk. Pretty sure it's a TED Talk. I know it's video on YouTube about your why. I hope that's, you know what I mean by that. But for instance, I think the most common why I hear for all of us is I want to lose weight. I need to lose weight. It's gotten out of control. And that is a pretty good motivator for a while, right? But how many of us, if that's our only motivator, I want you to see it as, those old balancing scales like this? If losing weight is on this side, but on this side it's but I love chocolate and it's my stress relief and it's my happy place, and I'm out with my social friends having party, and there's all these reasons that I want to keep this in my life and I don't know what else to replace it with. If all the reasons for keeping the junk food are heavier than the motivation for losing weight, we'll sabotage ourselves again and again because we have heavier desires on this side. They're more motivating. They're greater payoffs. What we're doing today is, yes, losing weight is a good why, but we need to make that heavier so that this side outweighs all the cost benefits. And I know there are some of our comfort eating, our emotional eating, our favorite food, our Big Macs, our Diet Coke that just makes us so happy. All of that. You're probably wondering why I put Diet Coke in there instead of Coke. That's a whole nother story. Let's just leave that. So let's talk about some whys that can make our motivation just jump into action like my kids did. So what I did when I was first studying this idea is I went on a lot of different coach websites and workout websites, plans, and a lot of people have written articles on this, and there were a lot of good ideas. Some of these things that I'm going to list may be your why, and maybe enough to cause that kind of a spark like it did for my kids. And if it is, sweet, I've had people come into the office and they're finally to the point they just don't just want to lose weight. They want to feel better. Like, I feel like crap. I'm tired all the time. My digestion's off. I'm just dragging through the day. I don't have any energy. Like, I just don't feel good. Aches and pains. I feel old. I need to get my life back. That's been a big motivator for some of my clients. And if that's enough for you, that may be the one that you latch onto and go, you know what? It's not about the size of my jeans anymore. I gotta feel better. I can't live like this, slamming down caffeine just to get through the day because I'm just dragging. My body doesn't have what it needs. I need to take care of it. Another why may be you got some scary numbers or a scary diagnosis from a doctor. Ooh, I've seen that as a huge motivation where people come to me and sit down and go, we're doing it. The doctor said I could die, or I'm going to start new medication, or I'm borderline diabetic. It is time. And I've seen that motivate. Sometimes though, it'll work for a while, but even that, once you start to change, you're like, oh, I'm okay. I can have a Big Mac here and there. It might not be enough. It might last for a little while. I have a friend that had a very, very serious heart surgery, bypass. And man, the pain and suffering of that surgery was enough to shake this person into very healthy eating. They did not want to go through that again, but it's now been many, many years and the pain of it's faded. And it's just kind of like back to old habits. So we need an even heavier wire maybe, right? Another one that I've heard a lot was, I want to do this for my family. I'm missing out. I want to have the energy to play with my kids or my grandkids. I want to be able to go on that roller coaster or do those activities with the family that in my physical state I can't do. It's a family connection, a connection with your loved ones where you want to really get back in those relationships and be able to participate in a way that you have the energy to do. Closely related to that is the why of, I want to live my life. There's things I still want to do and I can't do them right now. I talked to someone the other day that absolutely loves being in the outdoors and hiking and, just being all over the mountains, and had noticed that they were in a physical state where they just couldn't even enjoy it. They were miserable the whole time. And so that was being stolen from them, from their health. So for this person, that was a huge why. That was the motivator. It wasn't about a number on the scale anymore. It's like, I want to do the things I love. Can you see how some of these, if we latch onto them, will be enough to really start to motivate us through the hard days of making a lifestyle change? So that's the hardest thing about this, is the understanding that when we're not going on a diet, right? We're going to make a lifestyle change. Try to shift to a new permanent way of living. But anytime we learn something new software at work, a kid learning to drive, right? Talk to any mom. That's where I trained 7 of them in the car. A new driver, it's stressful. any type of new learning curve is stressful. And so as we're shifting away from our comfort foods and trying to learn a new way to take care of ourselves, it's difficult. There's going to be hard days. Add life in, our boss and traffic and PMS and all the other things that can derail that, it's going to be difficult. So if we don't have a heavy enough why, those difficult days, we're going to be like, forget it. Give me the ice cream. I can't. I'm done. I'm done. But if there's a heavy enough reason, it will fuel us past those days like, no, I have a reason that I'm doing this. I need to go find something good that will fuel my body even though I'm stressed out, right? That's what happened to me. I was such a chocoholic that nothing would derail it until I got to some bigger whys. So if the things that were mentioned may have applied to you, may not, they're very, very good whys. And maybe all of them combined are enough for you. But my purpose in this video today is to go deeper on two levels, because there's two really big whys that I didn't even understand in my earlier dieting years, but that made a radical difference in my head and in my heart. They changed everything for me. It was like the light went on and I just went, no, we're doing this. Okay, so let's talk about these two things for a minute. The first one, completely unknown to me when I was in my 30s and just starting this journey. There were some ways, and I described this in my sugar addiction class. I get this in deeper in this in some of my other videos, but it was brought to my attention through some authors, some experts, that there was a connection between the depression that I'd had for 3 years and my high sugar diet. The irritability, the mood swings. I really just thought my hormones were out of whack. I blamed it on my kids or the weather or the, that responsibility that was bogging me down. That's why I'm just having all this emotional upheaval. But it was pretty bad and I couldn't shake out of it. And so I had gone to a doctor to try to, have some options there, and nothing really sat right with me. And then I read, it's actually the book Potatoes Not Prozac, and I talk about that in my other video. So look for the video on sugar addiction if you want to learn more. But the moment I read that depression is linked to high sugar intake, my world changed, because I was in the throes of depression, anxiety, mood swings, like temper, just I could snap at the kids. I just didn't like who I was. And I was blown away that I was doing this to myself. Again, I was putting it on everybody else. You're all the reason that I'm so stressed out. Or I was putting it on my hormones, or I was putting it on, just, that's life. That's how everybody lives, right? That was a big why. All of a sudden, putting the sugar in my mouth was different. I couldn't unsee that information, unlearn that information. Now I knew when I grabbed that donut, I was making it worse. And I'll tell you right now, fast forward, it's been 15 years since that time. And I did come out of my sugar addiction, and all of that emotional upheaval, the depression, the anxiety, the mood swings, all of it, gone. So for me, it was the sugar. Totally was. Now, let me be very, very clear. I always make sure I say this. I am not saying that everyone with depression, it's caused by their diet. Not saying that. There can be a lot of contributing factors, and I want to just get that out on the table. But let's just look at this for a minute. 1 in 6 adults are medicated for depression and anxiety. 1 in 6. In age 18 to 44. You can't tell me that the high incidence of depression and anxiety right now in our culture isn't linked with the enormous diet of sugar, soda, junk that we eat. There is a connection, and I feel pretty strongly about this. I just want to offer the idea that for those of us who have struggled in that emotional darkness, that blackness that can really, it's just like a dark cloud and you can't get out from under it. Maybe it's time to consider changing your diet could revolutionize that. It did for me. It's not like I just feel a little bit better. Those clouds are gone. I used to live in this roller coaster place emotionally, and now it's not like I never have a bad day, but it's just, there's a stability now, a mental clarity, a lightness that was not there. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story. 5 years after I kind of came out of my sugar addiction, changed my diet, I've been pretty strict because, again, I did not want depression. Like, I didn't want it anymore. And so I was hardcore into finding a new way to take care of myself. I needed to be this new person. And I'll tell you what, the what kind of wife and mother I was off of sugar, wow, like so different. So 5 years into this, I thought, I wonder if I can handle it now. It's been 5 years. I'm just curious. I think I'm going to go back to sugar for a few days and just see what happens. And I'm not even kidding. Within about 24, probably 48 hours, that blackness, I was snapping at the kids again. I was mad at the world. That stress, it came right back. It came right back. Now, the author of Potatoes Not Prozac, Kathleen DeMason, she does say not everybody's body responds to sugar like that. But for those of us that are sugar sensitive, that have more tendencies toward addiction with sugar and carbs, that emotional connection is there. So if you needed to hear that today, if you are struggling with some pretty heavy emotional stuff, and you haven't yet explored a dietary change, watch some of my other videos. You can go scroll through. There's some other things where I go deeper into this. But I'm just here to say, boy, that why, it was like my kids in the movie. Like, everything changed. Depression had been so difficult, especially to function as a mother. I needed out, and it did change everything. It did. So that for me is, like I said, all those other whys we listed, right, are good whys. And if they're enough, that's one thing. But then if we want to go deeper, we've got to understand that food, what we eat, does impact our emotional state and our mental state. Foggy brain, just you forget, confused. All the systems of your body need the right nutrients to function. And so if we're not putting whole food, like God created it, into our body to give it those symptoms, the gas it needs to run, those symptoms or those systems are going to get off, and they're not going to function right. Emotionally, mentally is included in that. Our blood sugar has a lot to do with our emotions. We want to think that our emotions are completely about the outside circumstance, right? But if my blood sugar, if I have had a candy bar and a soda and then it goes and crashes at work, I'm going to snap at my boss. My blood sugar's just dropped. There is a connection. So what you eat can change you emotionally and mentally in such a drastic way. And that, to me, is a huge motivator. Now, the last one is the biggest one, and that's the reason I saved it for last. I'm not going to go deep into it because I've covered it other places, and I'll tell you where to go if you want to go deeper. You know what? It's bugging me. I think the camera's crooked. Is that better? I don't know. I'm not renewing this, so we're just going to deal with it the way it is. The last one came straight from the Lord himself. As I was going through the process of changing the way I took care of myself. Yes, I was very motivated by not having emotional problems anymore. But the thing I struggled with was food had always been my emotional comfort. I, over and over and over, would eat when I wasn't hungry at all. When I was hungry here. Does that make sense? Like my soul was hungry. Like there was an inner void, an inner restlessness. A lot of times I was in the kitchen, not at all because my stomach was growling, but because like my soul was. Like I used food to heal this part of me. I didn't say that's what I was doing. I wasn't in the kitchen saying, I have an inner void and I need some chocolate chips, Even, and the worst part was, it really didn't fix it either. But a lot of us, we do the best we can to cope. We just struggle with that inner soul hunger that we just don't have what we need. And so, we may binge on food, we may binge on social media, we may binge watch Netflix. We're trying to get that filled. And the Lord began to show me, it was actually through John chapter 6, that I was looking to the wrong deliverer. for my soul hunger to be filled. So I'm going to quick overview. I go hardcore into this in my Satisfied class. So if you really want to dig in, take a look at my online courses. I'll put the links below. And look for my Satisfied class on finding fullness in Christ instead of food. Well, really, if this intrigues you, don't worry. You can get all of it. Hardcore. There's like 8 sessions in that class, video sessions. So in John chapter 6, the Lord has just fed the 5,000 and 7 loaves, 2 fishes, or was it 5 loaves, 2 fishes? I don't even have my scriptures in front of me. So he's fed them. He sent the disciples across the lake, and then the whole thing happens with him walking on the water. And then they end up on the other side of the lake in the morning. But the crowd really enjoyed the free meal. They weren't letting him get off too easily. They follow him. They find him the next day because they want more. And they come to him, and he's been very willing to entreat their requests, but they all come and start to throng him again and say, Lord, how'd you get across the river? Where have you been? We need more. And suddenly Jesus gets very serious about his ministry and what he is there to offer these people. He isn't going to just provide free meals. That's not his purpose, and he wants them to understand it in this chapter. But he says something in John 6, verse 35, that's pretty big for those of us that are believers in Christ. He says to them, I should have grabbed my scriptures. Then I can quote it to you perfectly. Go look it up. You can look it up. It talks about partaking of the bread of life. Him, right? And those who partake of the bread of life, he promises in that verse, will never hunger and never thirst. Now, he's not talking about bellies anymore, right? I mean, we know that. He is talking about a different kind of hunger and thirst. He's promising you eat of the bread I have to give. He later in that chapter says, eat my flesh, drink my blood. Like, I'm the bread you're supposed to eat. And if you do, you'll never hunger and never thirst. He does not say, every time your soul hungers and thirsts, I will fill you if you believe in me, if you come to me. That right there is what my experience with him had been. I hungered and thirsted all the time. I called it restlessness or irritability or need, or I'm just not happy, or there's a lot of ways we can describe that hunger and thirst we're talking about. Again, not physical, soul level. I didn't really call it hunger and thirst, but again, I'd gone to every source I could to get it filled, but I was hungering and thirsting a lot. Every time I'd have a bad day or stressful situation, or I was experiencing that soul need, that void, even though, this is the craziest thing, I had followed Christ my whole life. I believed in him. I'd been in the scriptures. I'd been in church. I'd been on my knees praying. I thought I was partaking of the bread of life. So this hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, wait a second. The promise he makes is that you partake of this bread of life, you'll never hunger, never thirst. There will be a soul satisfaction, a filling that will keep you full. You'll never, ever feel that void anymore if you partake of my bread. And suddenly I went, how can I have been a believer my whole life? And this verse isn't true for me. I do hunger and thirst. That's the whole reason I'm a sugar addict and an addict to other things, right? That rocked my world. Because suddenly I realized he was making a promise to anyone who would come deeper in their discipleship. And in chapter 6, you go deep into that. He teaches you how to partake of that bread. And again, I talk about that in Satisfied. You're like, wait, if it's not reading the scriptures and going to church, what is it? I had to ask the same question. I'm doing the checklist. Why is this not filled in me? Why am I so addicted to all these other things to try to get my fix? What am I doing wrong? What am I missing? Talk about a why. Talk about a why that just, again, rocked my world. My head was spinning. Suddenly, I just thought, if this is a promise that he's made, I don't want to miss this. I want to know what he's talking about. I want to know what that feels like to be full like that, to never hunger and never thirst. Okay, this is the question I answer in Satisfied. It's the reason I created that class, because a little 30-minute YouTube video isn't going to get us there. So again, I'm not trying to upsell my class. I'm just trying to say, this is a message that I had to learn for myself. I had to dig in and answer that question. Okay, Lord, then what do I have to do to partake of that bread of life? What is it going to look like? Do I have to spend more time in my scripture? Do I have to never watch TV again and just read scriptures all day? And I spun and spun. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. Work harder, do more spiritual stuff isn't the answer. It's not the answer it gives in John 6, and it's not what we talk about in Satisfied. It's a different path. But I just am here to tell you today, that's the reason I don't turn to the food anymore. Yes, I feel great. I have more energy. My numbers are good. I can keep up with my kids. All the whys we were talking about earlier, right? Yes, my emotions are balanced. My mind, granted, I'm almost 50. It's not like there's perfection. I'm getting ready to go through menopause. There's stuff still. Nothing like what I experienced before. So all those things have been taken care of. But I'm here to tell you, those things, as good as they are and as motivating as they may have been along the way, they're not what keep me in this place of health. Now that I am beginning to taste the bread of life that he was talking about, now that I've shifted some things, made some changes in my life, come to Christ with a different focus, chapter 6, verse 35, that promise is coming true in my life, and there aren't words to describe it. Chocolate's nothing compared to him. It's nothing. And now, that far away from it, I can look back and go, I can't believe that I thought it was doing it. I was blind at the time. I was doing the best that I could to cope with the stresses of life. We all do that, don't we? So let's not shame ourselves for the choices that we've made. Food is available. It's right there. We may have grown up in a culture of food, in a family that uses food. Let's not worry about how we got there. But when he does come to us and say, do you want more? You want to go deeper? Do you want a kind of satisfaction that will completely obliterate any kind of comfort food and the satisfaction you thought you were getting from that? I'll show you. It reminds me of Isaiah 55. Again, I don't have my scriptures, but they say, everyone that hungers and thirsts, come to the waters, come, eat, drink, without money and without price, right? He's freely giving a banquet. And we're just over here in the corner, just filling ourselves with comfort food when a banquet is spread that will meet every need that we're trying to get that food to meet. And then Isaiah 55 says, let your heart delight in fatness. There's a fatness, the best kind of fatness that can come from the Lord. If your religious life, if your spiritual life doesn't feel like fatness, if it's not filling your soul's hunger and thirst in a way that it stays full, maybe there's more to be learned. Maybe there's more. So I would invite you, since our time is about up, I will put all the links below that you need to explore this a little more. If you want to dive in to my podcasts, you can start there. If you want to look at my online classes, those links will be below as well. I just want to say with my whole heart, not only is this journey possible, but when we find the right motivation that creates a hunger in us to experience more than we've ever experienced, to move past the crash and burn cycle and truly come to a place where not only our bodies healed, but our souls are filled, to me, there's no more extraordinary journey we could go through. To find Christ in the midst of all this when I thought it was just about dieting, That's truly where everything changed for me. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful. You can also check my website below if you want to contact me with any questions. I really encourage you also to let the Lord into this part of your journey too, and find Him and find that fatness that will fill your soul. Thanks for joining me.